can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down. There ain't no grave can hold my body down.
We went to this is an after party because we went and partied, but I'm not specifically, but we might have partied. Okay. And well, a lot of times when I'm on my balcony and we go to the after party, it doesn't, it's like, oh, okay, the after party, and then it's like, oh, and then there's nobody there, and there's no drugs. And, this is more like an after party, like I used to have or know about. Heard about.
Oh, Shaylee, I love you. Look at that.
My brother, Ghost Right, showed up.
Oh, fuck yeah.
That's it.
Oh, man.
I don't know. That might be too much.
Wow.
I won't be able to quit.
No.
People are looking at the mountains anyway, let's be honest.
People like politics and pumpkins. I'm not going to get into any of it.
I used to talk about pumpkins.
Yeah, no, okay. I got assaulted by a guy because he was very protective of what I did to his pumpkin. I didn't think that was.
Are you talking in metaphors right now?
I know. I was a.
Is this a story we've heard or a new one? It sounds familiar.
I was a pumpkin smasher for a few years, and in fact, I still have the impulse. There's nothing like throwing a ripe, carved up pumpkin on the street, regardless of the effort.
It used to be a thing where
it was
like you smashed everyone's pumpkins after Halloween, and everyone, when you put pumpkins out, you complained about the kids smashing your pumpkins, but then when it stopped, you realized that they were a necessary part of the ecosystem, because now you've got a rotting pumpkin on your porch, and you have to deal with it.
You kids smashed that thing.
Come on.
I was going to throw out tomorrow.
Now I got to throw it away myself. Can't these? I need some ne'er-do-wells to come by.
And you know who loves the pumpkin smashing? The crows.
Yeah,
not the band. Not the band. The actual bird. You smash a pumpkin and you go by it the next day and there's a fucking feeding frenzy going on. Like I did that. I made something. But I love doing it.
He's an artist.
I love doing it. I forget the year I did it. I definitely started around 8th grade, but I couldn't take my kid out smashing pumpkins. One, she's a girl, and so she didn't. But the only time she got to do it, there was a thing.
You think it's a thing where with your child, a rite of passage, where you take your child out and smash people's pumpkins?
Well, my dad drove past people who were walking on a wet sidewalk and emptied the fucking puddle on them.
I love that Andy puts her to bed after trick or treating and then goes out into some disguise to go.
I have
like Dexter.
I've done vengeful pumpkin smashing as an adult.
Sure.
Like I kicked in the face of one, and one time when I was living in an apartment. Okay, this is like a haunted experience. This is near Halloween. I was in an apartment, and I had a waterbed because I don't even remember how I had it, but it filled up the whole fucking room.
Having a waterbed is a big thing, Andy, because
it was a piece of I know it's a mess. Oh yeah,
You should remember.
I had no
waterbed just showed up in my room one day.
I had no concept of it other than
I rolled over and went, whoa, what the fuck?
Wavy.
Yeah.
It's wet on the inside.
Yeah, my concept of it was those 70s movies with a van and somebody goes, you want a waterbed? They were moving. I go, fuck yeah, I do. Anyway, I had troubles with a neighbor. She didn't like the way we aggressively threw bottles at the train that went by. And I didn't like the noise she made about it. So one time I went over and cut the face off of her pumpkin. And
wait, you cut it off
I cut the face. I recarved it.
Just fucked it up.
Reconfigured it. And I don't know, man. I don't know what her magic was.
That's a scary thing. If you carve a pumpkin and you come out the next day and someone's come to your house and recarved it,
but she knew
someone's got it out for you. That's scary.
But we were right next to each other, and it wasn't. I don't.
She knew who it was.
I was at my. This was probably one of my first apartments. trying to make a good impression, and it fell apart. But we did. There was trains that would go by, and we would. It's just mostly I had a lot of aggression
and bottles,
and a lot of empty bottles, and recycling wasn't a thing back then.
Well, you are using them again.
Yes, repurposing.
Well, what would you do if you just were, you like throwing things and breaking stuff, and then they brought they brought new automobiles behind your house going 30, 40 miles an hour.
Well, that's what they cage the automobiles because of guys like you
with chicken wire.
Well, now
they've got
now they do
corrugated metal to completely house the vehicles. I know. Because
I've
throw rocks.
I know I've changed. Looking back, I'd like that. That movie. Change. It's a Wonderful Life. It's like, wow. I've enacted change. That on a Tribble gig in the Tri-Cities area. You get the contract, and there were a lot of rules for the Tri-Cities because there was a nuclear factory, and they wanted to keep everybody steady. And it was just it was a 3-night gig though, and I added so I got the contract the next time, and I had an incident. They had an incident as a.
You were fine. I was fine with
no problems here.
As a people, they had a problem. They were living in those little houses, working at kind of like that. But it was like I just kind of started riffing on the thing, and then the nuclear power plant, and having some laughs with it. It wasn't like they were the show sponsor, or wasn't in front of the Hanford nuclear banner, but the people there were not happy people. None of them were.
There's something about the way you do comedy by opening every set with riffing on how terrible it is where you are.
How horrible
and how awful everyone is.
Hey, put your hands together, and if you have more than 2, go ahead and slap them, slap that on your, I did shit like that, and I go fucking kill.
Your flipper and third eye.
That kind of shit. I had a crude understanding of what nuclear fallout does.
Andy found a way to take people who were trying to escape something and shove it right into their face.
The whole reason they went to comedy is to forget about nuclear power.
Well, I guess because when I got that next contract, and I reluctantly got it, come on, Dave, but it said, do not reference.
Oh, you changed the contract template.
Yeah.
Nice.
And there's all this other stuff, which,
Then you've made your mark.
And honestly, I could have added several others, it said, do not talk about the company, nuclear power, or people who work for the power plant. All that. And I was riffing and having some fun.
In a town that's built on nuclear
power. Yeah, and I made fun of, you got to always go like, what's the other town nearby? Well,
the prison. Don't reference the prison industrial complex.
Steak and Shake alone. They just opened up.
Where's your correctional facility in town? What would you consider the nearest town by your correctional facility? But also in that town, I would drive there, and I'd go through Umatilla, which is where they store a lot of nerve gas they haven't found a use for yet. So, and then I watched a story about how they spent all this money to warn people about if there's a nuclear situation, and it's like basically speakers, and they interviewed people. And anyway, I made jokes about that, and it was cool because it was further away. But it was cooler for them.
It was they didn't live there. It was the neighbors.
Yeah. And also that town would go. So they have a strip club in this basically a trailer park town. So there's about 15 jokes right there. I tip with government cheese or whatever. It's the first time I've ever seen 3 titties swinging in my face or whatever. How do you tip that? Do you tip by titty or per titty or fun stuff? But
$1 per tit.
And that worked all right because I wasn't there. But I stopped in there one time and it was rough. I don't think that girl was good at dancing or there by your choice.
She signed a contract too.
Yeah, she got into podcasting now. She's too rough for dancing. But I wanted to experience it, and people would call it Umatitty. Really, you look forward to getting there. But it's like the only strip club around there, and that Tri-Cities area it's
what
kind
are
of
the 3 cities in Tri-Cities?
Richland is where this was
not a city.
One,
okay, keep going.
Kennewick and Pasco.
Also, none of those are cities.
No. The three towns of boredom.
They should have called it almost one city.
I almost got it
from a town to a city and think that Richland qualifies.
Here's the one that qualifies.
It may have been a couple of counties.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was Tri-Cities.
I went to what this
They call it the Tri-Shitties, and there are 3 specific cities. Andy doesn't know what they are. Even
well, I spent a lot of time in Richland because I felt like that's it, man. I made it because it's $600 and feature and it was $300, but eventually that was when the rules started changing. When I had more time because I only had like 30 minutes, so I'd like riff, and that's where things started getting better.
You've had a bigger impact on comedy than you even realize.
Yeah.
You know,
I could definitely see him altering the
it's like
rules.
it's like when you walk in somebody's fresh cement and you just forget about it, and they think about it for years.
Eric, what are the 3 cities in the Tri-City area? You know?
Have you worked?
Richland.
Yes, Richland. That's
Winnetka.
What?
No, what?
Kennewick is how
Kennewick?
I called it.
I don't know any. I've never been to any of these.
I did radio. I did
a bunch of Tribble runs, but I didn't do that one.
That was this was actually for this was the Tri-Cities. There was a lot of comedy.
I know the Quad
Turf
Cities.
Wars. Donna Reed had that gig, and then eventually Tribble wrestled it away from her. But it was 3 nights at the same place, Best Western, and it had a pool.
If you could do
take my dog and wash her.
If you could do a Tribble run that there was actually a gig where it was the same place more than one night, that was the best run he had for sure. That was the one he gave you. He gave that to you so that you would keep coming back and doing the rest of his absolutely horrendous, terrible, shitty one-nighters.
A flagship.
Yeah. Tribble used to pay you for the whole run on the last night. Otherwise, you would definitely have left. You would have just walked away.
Passing 800 miles.
What I liked about it, he had because he goes like, I got to pay people less, and he sends you on 600-mile drives between gigs, and he's like, how can I take their gas money? And here, so he had a sliding scale. So you do a run. If you do more than the more you work, the less you get paid.
Right.
The first gig you get 100 as a feature, then it's like 75. But it's like a fuck you scale sort of. And I never really. That's one because I worked with Hoot Looney. I joined the union, and I worked as a union shop, and I fucking kind of walked away from Tribble gigs when he did the sliding scale. That and the alcoholism.
And it wasn't worth it in the first place.
No, I thought about. I impulsively just didn't want to. Not only did I not want to finish the run, I didn't want to finish the day or the night or whatever.
It sucked the life out of you.
Even though you'd see a lot of beautiful country, you'd have to drive through it at 90 miles an hour, herd cattle sometimes to get to the gig, and then sometimes they didn't like it.
Legitimately, a 600 or 700 mile drive between gigs.
Whenever I went,
and you had to be there the next day.
When I went with Shaylee and Stanhope on that trip around, a lot of those were Montana. A lot of those Stanhope would tell me that were Tribble gigs that he used to do, but he would tell me the order. Like we did them in an order where it made sense, and you were looping, and he would be like, "I'd have to go here, and then here, back. And then down here, but then back up here for again." And I was like,
the one drive I definitely remember is I left late to get to Winnemucca, and I'm driving to fucking Winnemucca, and it does say open range and shit. See, I guess somebody who's been on an open range knows what to expect, but I'm kind of late for the gig, and then I see up ahead fucking cows and bulls and shit in the road. And I'm the only car on the road, and I'm like, what do you do in a situation like this? The cows block the road, man. I can't make the gig. There's fucking cattle. Winnemucca, and then I got there. I was sick when I got to Winnemucca. Did the gig. I didn't, but it was like a Monday night or something like that in Winnemucca, and there was a full audience. I wasn't this crowd, a few more. Over there. No, but and they were all.
I don't know. You're pointing at rocks.
Anyway, I know that.
There's nobody over there. The people are over there.
I know that.
You're pointing.
We're playing. Do you know that? We're playing to the camera.
To the audience. And I don't want you to do any more nuclear material.
All right. Yeah. No nukes at all. But so I did this Winnemucca gig. I was sick, I think, and I was, so the coal miner, they were all miners. I found out later as I go back in, and I think Jerry Percio was he's such a hack. He was closing the show, and he got a standing ovation, fucking standing ovation. And then he goes, one more time for Andy Anderson. He was back, and I got.
And they all sat down immediately.
No, they gave me the same thing, and then it was like a curtain call, and that's when I found out they have no lives at all. They're coal miners or whatever. They have thankless fucking gigs. You know?
They're just glad to be out of the cave.
Yeah, and then
they're glad they made it up alive in the shack.
Yeah,
beats Black Lung.
Yeah, and then I took my $70 and walked up to the Winners Casino and checked into my room and. I didn't go down to the casino because back then I couldn't take a chance. If I need to get to the next gig, I am going to need that $70. And if I try to double down and get sandwich money, I'm fucked. And I met Dave Tribble.
You had to gamble to order a sandwich?
And he started out looking out for people who had drugs just so he wouldn't be hungry.
No,
that's how this started. He didn't have sandwich money, and he's like, "How do I?"
I wasn't a drug fiend back then, but I was loosey goosey with the booze, and I hadn't really gotten to be adult. I hadn't adulted with booze, so there were situations in Missoula, and, fucking Reading, and Apologies. I was learning.
Apologies is a town.
Apologies, yeah, Apologies, California, burnt, and my heart goes out.
Mandy throws in every once in a while now to cover his face.
Apologies, he was a little loud.
Yeah. I did it. I don't forget who this was for. And I don't know why I accepted. It was in Albion, Idaho, and I thought for some reason it was close to Boise, but it was nowhere close to Boise. And my GPS kept insisting I turn around. I had a lot of problems with that. It was early days of it, and I didn't understand banging a U-turn going the wrong direction was something. That wasn't something I had to follow. And I got to Albion, Idaho. It's a fucking way the fuck from anything.
Wait, aren't you going the wrong way?
I eventually got there, and I got there, and it was a fucking, it's a ski town with no snow. And anyway, but I went to the place where it was, and it's mom and pops, aged, like old grandparents running the gig, and they had Fox News, and there were 4 ranchers watching intently, and a retard, and that's the wrong phrasing. Todd.
They don't like to be called ranchers.
I know, Todd. Give him. No, they're Jolly Ranchers now.
Don't use the R word.
Yeah, we'll clean it up in post. And if you got downs, I ain't talking to you. I'm talking about retards. But there's a retard with her fucking.
Double down, Andy. There you go.
This is definitely on Patreon, Shaylee. We were talking about, is this going to be a YouTuber page? This is going to be,
we'll feel it out.
So I go into this thing, and there's a sign flapping. It does say comedy, and there's, and I go in there, and that's what I see. And I'm there early, in spite of my, road situations. I'm there early enough to see it in advance and go, God, no.
Yeah.
And saw that, and there's a retarded first woman. She was at least 21 because she was at the show later. I think my mom was a stickler, and I was again. I got sick a lot, and I was very sick.
Belly sick.
Belly sick.
No, this was nose and throat sick.
Well, there goes that $70.
Yeah.
Like I was conserving my voice, and I loaded up to how like before a gig you guys will get the bar ready. I stopped and got several things of cough syrup, and
wait, that doesn't sound like a remedy. That sounds
right. So
how do I get through this night?
It was a disaster from my side of it. I was in. So I said she's had her tongue on the bar, and she wasn't.
Wait.
Like
just let him keep going. You're gonna start trying to understand at this point.
So I walk in and I'm mad as it is, mad about everything, and the sign's flapping, mocking me, and I go into this thing,
with the word comedy, it's just mocking him.
Comedy.
Yeah, 3 fucking ranchers, tards, tards, and they're fucking grown, and this lady who had her tongue, and I was not hopeful about the gig at all, and I was like, well, the sign said comedy tonight, and I'm here. I think it was a. I
You're
don't.
on after the
I sure as fuck don't remember. I think it was a one-man show, so I didn't even have an opener for this, and so I meet the old lady. No, there was a bit of a crowd. It was a lot of farm folk, ranchers.
Oh, there was
a whole crowd of retards.
I thought there was just a couple. All right,
I think that's going to be a.
So I met like Birdie, Grandma Birdie, and she's like, "Oh, happy son."
The owner?
Yeah, she said, "Oh well." And I met Bill, who's still alive, and Birdie did.
Imagine Birdie, like Birdie and her husband have been running this place for 50 years. They're like, you know what? Things have gotten a little slow. You know what would be good? We'll have comedy. Let's have a comedy night.
Sounds like
Dave, this Dave Tribble guy, he's going to have good comics.
Turn it around.
And look,
this is great.
It's going to be fantastic. Send whoever you got.
Well, it did.
I do want to say that we have some sensibilities for language. Oh no.
Don't worry about it.
That's exactly what we talked about. That's exactly it. So Victor,
comedy. I like that. Larry, the cable guy. He's funny. Let's have comedy.
Let's get her done.
Let's get her done.
Here's the huge thing. So I'm disheartened. Okay, I meet Birdie and she doesn't. She goes, "Oh, do it. Whatever. Happy to have you and all this. You know, like, get yourself a nice warm home cooked meal and all that bullshit." And I just, where's the hotel? And then she goes, we don't want any F words. We, you know, and any raw language or F words in particular. And then I was like, drank cough syrup and smoked what?
Of cough syrup.
So they didn't outlaw the cough syrup.
I met the other owner who was setting up the room, which was a yurt attached to the bar. So there's a yurt. You're
doing comedy in a yurt?
No.
With my back against the wall.
Where's the yurt?
The yurt's
yurt's
a
right
comedy
there.
condo?
Yeah, they had a yurt attached to the bar somehow.
So, but how is the yurt playing?
I think it was just a plank, like walk the plank. So you walk the little plank, and then you open the door, and then you are in the yurt until you can get out. But
is the yurt where you do comedy?
What I would do if I were in a yurt situation, I would want to sit by the door. I would want by the door. But as a comedian hired some chick who's booking, said, "Hey, yeah," and then I'll be on that by Boise. She goes, "Yeah," and no, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. One of my gags was, I'll be honest, I didn't know where this fucking place was, and oops, right away, the F-bomb. Birdie tensed up. But anyway, I saw it was at a yurt. In a yurt, so I planned.
You immediately shifted into yurt material.
Yeah.
Well, I went to the motel and had a good cry. I was also the only car at the hotel. Oregon plates, only car. And this is an item.
Snow machines or horses out front? How did they get
well,
it's like the end of Fargo.
They all met at the company store and they carpooled from there.
Let's just say availability was open.
Vacancy. They're waiting for Andy's set to be over so they can go to bed.
Yeah.
Well, it came into play because one rancher said, "We know where your car, you're in front of." So I I did a little, delicate pandering, I guess. But I was anyway. Victor Wilt. Victor Wilt. You know him, the Reptilians. He's a DJ and around.
I know Victor.
He drove a couple hundred miles. He couldn't believe I was going to be in Albion, and I'll be honest, I couldn't either. And so I had a cord. They sat up front, and I brought Robitussin on stage.
No, you can't drink your own brought in liquor.
Birdie didn't mind that as long as the talk was not saucy. I could drink the syrup.
Talk, but bring all the cough syrup.
But here's what I did, because I was like, I knew I was going to be back against the wall, and
back against the yurt.
Yeah, well, back against the lattice is a technical term. My plan is
because yurts have lattice windows.
Well, this one did, and that threw my whole plan off because I had. I did. I had a knife in my pocket. I did.
That's
no
an
shit.
escape plan,
Exactly. No shit. I'd planned, if it got fucking squirrely, to cut my way out and run for the car and get the fuck out of there. I didn't know which direction, but one of them.
He wouldn't be able to find his car.
I see fucking pickup trucks. So I mop up on the cough syrup, and I did use the F word but I told a story story about no, but I did that one and I slipped up and I go, I'm sorry, Bertie, it'll get better. Well, it couldn't, but I knew that they knew I was the only Oregon plate out there, and also I was the only car in the only hotel about 14 feet away.
And he saws through the side of a yurt, only to discover the entire crowd standing at his car.
Yeah. Well, and fires.
That was my plan before the core or the whole reptilians showed up, and then I thought, all right, I got a heavy metal band. I always know.
Reptilian is a band or a DJ?
Yeah, it's like I would have, if I hate to do this to people, but for self-preservation.
Victor is Victor Wilt's a DJ in Idaho. He's the guy who was at the gig at the Pepper Mill in Idaho Falls when that guy took his eye out.
And Doug tried to spit it back.
Doug tried to spit it back into his eyeball.
I remember that story.
That whole thing.
Yeah, so Reptile was there?
Well, they're the Reptilians. Is a heavy metal project he does, and I stayed at his house, and he showed me. He has kids, but they weren't around when he showed me this. But what was it called? Header. It's a fucking old school weirdo movie, Header, and it was like Grandpa of the Family raping him in the head. I swear to it, it's fucking the Headers. And I watch it, and then his kids come home from school. No, they put cuties on to cover Headers. Give her a header, and it was I don't think they made love to a existing hole, if I remember correctly. It wasn't my thing, but I watched it with him, and then I stayed in a heavy metal guy's basement. Anyway. This was another. I stayed with him. No, this was another gig. I went out and I did a fall for the Reptilians. After they saw, this was my audition.
After they saw your yurt show, they said we need this guy on tour with
and then
us.
they did Robitussin show. We partied at the hotel, and I go, I don't have any booze, but I got Robies, and we did Robies and smoked weed. Yeah, crunking, man, sort of crunking, sideways, white crunking, and but during the gig, and that guy alluded, he knew what my car, I saw my car and stuff, and I kind of did a lot of stuff that John Cougar would chuckle at, like farmer friend, I didn't want to make trouble, but I knew if there was trouble, and this is what I was getting at, I could like, hey man, look at these long-haired freaks, and then I run out, use them as cannon fodder. I had the same situation when in the Seattle comedy competition one time, at some fucking randomly I said something about skinheads and fuck them, and then there's a skinhead there, and then he's like, I'm gonna go get friends, and then I hung out with this, I think he called himself Corporal, or he had some military name he assigned himself, and he was a jolly black fella with a lot of happy black fella jokes, and I told him, man, can you believe that guy, the skinheads are coming back, they're gonna fuck me up in all the black comics.
You enlisted them all to your house.
Man, nice. I can't take these guys, I gotta stick around to see what the scores are. See if I need to punch up the set. And these guys are rallying the troops, so I wanted it to be a fair fight. Yeah, I go, I might even use the N-word to, I'm not putting up with this shit easy. I'm out, come on, man, let's go. We're not taking this.
It doesn't seem like it would.
I said the skinhead said he's coming back to kick my ass and all he can fucking round up. But back then there was no awareness. There was still movies that did it. I was just mimicking what I learned from the movies up in Hollywood. My dad never used that term. He used he wasn't racist.
His own color.
Yeah, he disliked and made fun of people on individual things. Sometimes the size of their pants, He was specific. When we sold papers outside of the mill, it was a freak show. Everybody was fucked up coming out of the mill, and he made fun of all of them, but not to their faces. He'd whisper to his children, there comes the Zacchaeus, the wee little man. Sniffer Ridland's heading down. Sniffer always bought a paper and tipped. Well, I went to his church, I was at Church of Gaudian.
Fucking cheers to Mr. Andrist.
You are all
Andy. I love it.
Hey,
That's what we're here for.
Thanks to our underground sponsor tonight, Lines of Borat. Help make this valley what it is today.
Borat.
You can ask me anything about Death Valley. I'm ready today.
Yeah, he decided not to say borax at the end and
because they're not a sponsor.
Yeah, they won't send me underpants, and if they did, they'd itch. I'm sure that shit's fucked up, man. You clean shit with it, but you don't want it near your balls.
What's borax?
20 mule protein
Isn't that
borax.
fucking shit you dump the fucking like janitors when you fuck
laundry booster
cleanser.
It's what the Catholic that I taught where I had to shit in that last episode on that around the bench and on the thing. That's
when
probably
you shit outside in front of a school.
on the sidewalk in front of a
I
children's
had a
school.
belly aching. I was twisted around.
belly sick and twisted.
Twisted around and more than internally. I had lost my cool. I couldn't find it, man. I don't know, man. I didn't get places when there wasn't GPS. I'd park and cry a lot.
Until what?
Well, I give up and then
Somebody knocked on his window and helped
You
him.
okay, son?
But I've said this before, and I think it's kind of. I feel like it's sort of my thing. Is the quitting gets easier the more you do it, and like quitting, like I'm not gonna find this place. Fuck it, quit, man. I don't give up. And then it's like some of those times I quit are my best times in life. Like, oh, this is a great beach. I'm glad I don't want to be there. I'm glad I don't have aspirations. But there's been gigs where I didn't know I had. That people go,
you didn't know you had a gig?
I don't know how that happened. But I showed up to every gig I remember booking.
How do you show up to a gig you didn't know you had?
I didn't. That's the thing. That's the thing about
Exactly.
it. That's
exactly what happens.
Yeah, well, and then people ask you about it.
Hey, how come you didn't show up to the gig you didn't
I
have?
grew up kind of. My dad always made sport and enjoyed the drunken antics. Even though my dad only had a beer now and then to rinse his kidneys because he's a man of God, and because he's a man of God, he was paralyzed. God likes to fuck his own.
Yeah.
And
Test of faith.
But he had a couple beers. But
he wasn't a drinker, right?
No, not much. No, never. My grandma did it for everybody. She did it. She. That's why they skip a generation. She did. She filled her tub and her pants. My grandma could pitch projects on Shark Tank.
What about your mom? Was she a drinker?
No, but one time, horrifying.
She had the bouffant hair.
Yeah, one time when she showed up at a show in Coos Bay and she had a screwdriver and she had no concept of it, that it had booze in it, and she started to get boozy and then she had another. And I'm like, holy shit, my mom's a fuck. She didn't know what she's doing, at all. She goes, these are good. Now, yeah,
you weren't booked there.
Why do you think I threw up on my sheets for so many fucking years? Of course it's good. You wiggy.
Yeah.
I like to.
Sounds like your bedroom, Andy.
I'd sometimes call her. I go, don't lose your wig, Tori. But sometimes she did though in public.
Did she go out to your gigs a lot?
No, that was once, one and done. And then, she went to a gig. Maybe that was it. I think she went to one in Coos Bay and then one at Harvey's where she had the 2-drink minimum and had the she was getting drunk at Harvey.
Experience.
And I thought your skit was real. You said, get out of, how are you getting, I ain't driving.
Who told you
I ain't driving you home. and then a few weeks later, she goes, I think I'm going to have to go to the comedy club. I want tickets. I don't know if I can.
How lucky
She was trying to find 10 friends to go to the comedy club.
Is that why you visited her when she didn't remember who you were?
I always had fun when my mom was deep in, I guess, good times. I called it. Some people call it she called it Oldtimers, and then she got it, and it did not help her improvement of the enunciation. She always mangled shit anyway, so you get a little forgetsin, and then she.
Yeah, hard to believe.
Yeah. I wear the same wig in life, I twist down that same road, and
she only saw you twice. On stage?
I was funny with her a lot. We had a real good skit. I'd say something real sarcastic, and she'd say something dumb. One time in a heated argument, and it was all.
So you were like the White Stripes of comedy.
It was all like
a comedy team.
My family. This will be odd.
I say something, and she says something dumb.
Yeah, you guys aren't going to believe this, but my family didn't get along. If we were on Family Feud, they would have not. We wouldn't have got past production. Now get out, man. But we didn't get along, and we argued a lot, but not in any kind of ethnic way. We just yelled at each other. But my mom said,
"What?
I don't know. Like some people go, oh, it's a German,
it's Italian,
it's a German thing, or it's a Native American thing, which is hey, we just drink too much booze.
Native American, Italian, and
anyway, we're white trash.
We use all parts of the argument.
Yeah, we really didn't give a shit about Norwegian roots when it come to that. We just, their dad's in a wheelchair and our house is falling over and everybody's, got, grandma moved in and she needs shit. And it was, the house was haunted with the living people. I really didn't care for the rats, but
That's a keeper.
Sorry we had to get so deep up in here.
Me.
And no,
Andy, that's the only reason the three of us show up.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God.
My family, like, if you wanted to know what your family thought of you, you walked through the room and then you went up and leaned into one of the vents, and everybody just talked shit about you. Oh, okay.
What a fag.
Yeah, you're fucking ruined.
Forced self-awareness right away.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I am.
Yeah, and my dad, I guess he loved me, but
Not through the vent.
And we had one of them,
Face to face.
the phone we had, and my dad was a paralyzed gentleman, and when the phone rang, he insisted on answering, even though it made him very angry. It was never good news for him. He's mad at me. He's very mad. I would be upstairs, trying to forget. No, but I use that throughout life,
That was what your mouth, Jack.
I was laughing.
It attacked me first.
Laughing and a bug flew in my mouth.
It was attacked me first.
So my dad would do this. I found it about,
Okay, hold on.
I gotta take a breath.
Your dad's in a wheelchair. The phone rings. He flings himself onto the floor and just starts crawling,
he's
screaming,
probably,
I got it!
one thing, my dad was a God lover, or I don't know how, he liked country music and he liked God,
It's the same thing.
He read the Bible and he listened to records, and I think he would have, he liked Barbara Mandrell.
Who didn't?
He loved Bubba.
Yeah.
All the Mandrell sisters.
I forget
Louise, Erlene.
But he, he said, yeah. I told you that one time, that was one of my first concert. My dad and mom took me and my brother. That's when I met Hoyt Axton, to Barbara Mandrell concert.
Andy, we've been talking to you for over a year and a half straight. We know.
I know.
Are you sure you give Andy the aspirin?
Yeah, I don't think it is.
Bring up Louise.
I think I might have got
bring
it.
up
Holy shit.
Bring up them Mandrell sisters, and I'm not going to react. They had a variety show, yo.
They did.
In case you. Anyway, so three things. My dad hated the wind, and he'd always read the newspaper late afternoon when the wind would hit it, and he hated it. It always pissed him off. I thought maybe he should read it indoor. But I'm a solution guy, but I didn't.
I insist on reading my paper in a hot air balloon.
God damn it.
Where's all this fucking wind coming from?
And he did swear on occasion. One time I heard him call my mom a fuck up after she got out of the car, and he was right.
She parked in the lake.
She brought homeless guys to the house for dinner.
Yeah, she did that shit.
Yeah. We were there.
I went fishing with a guy. He took no sexual interest in me. He thought he was, mentoring me. He tried to teach me karate, yet he lacked several fingers on his hand.
You were creeped out by the guy who didn't try to fuck you?
Hey, man, you got self-defense skills. How come you're missing fingers?
You did a two-finger karate chop?
He tried to teach me karate, and he also drank a lot. I didn't like him, but anyway, that's beside the point. My dad also didn't like washing my clothes, but he took over that duty, and he'd wrestle them out of the machine, and that pissed him off. But when the phone rang, and he'd answer it, and he'd put it on his thing and wheel it. If it was to me, they weren't vital, but he felt like
he put the phone in
his lap and roll. No, he'd roll through a couple rooms talking shit. Eventually, when my friend Al Walsh told me I had a running dialogue of my dad, talking shit, So when I hear the phone ring, I'd go, I heard it myself firsthand. But he'd go, oh, yeah, shit. And then, after he answered it, Sandy there, he hated hearing that. Fuck. And I was the only kid at home that wasn't like he was waiting on a lot of people at the time. But we had a 2 to 3 story house, depending on how afraid of rats you were. I went in. I was in the attic. I spent time up in the attic.
Brady room.
That's where me and my brother stole pen.
How have we been doing this for so long? Like
so
this
weird.
just comes up, you know.
This
There's
is
more
like-
onion to unpeel.
This is like the very first one we did when we did the test show in Alaska on stage so that they could test the podcast equipment at Calf Smiley's Alaska Festival. And Andy started talking about the retarded children in his FFA class in high school.
Well, yeah.
Sequestered into a bus.
Yes.
No, it's
and we
Yeah, there's a lot. I had a lot of retarded people interactions as a kid. I went to grade school and they had a bus of them, and the bus was parked on the playground in the middle of it. I don't know about air conditioner standards, but that's where the special class was. And then I guess when it got too hot, they'd funnel into another part of the building. But we never saw them except we mixed with them on the playground, and we had a playground teacher, and sometimes we'd get a runner, and I was one of the kids who.
What's a runner?
Logan's Run style.
We got a runner.
We get a runner.
I thought it was someone who expedited.
Basically, I was appointed by us. A lot of times I spent the whole playground.
You were fast.
Well,
You were good. You were a good runner.
She broke my spirit and put
Not
me.
fast enough.
I was punished so much that I'd listen to anything. But
Became one of them.
I rounded him up.
Yeah.
I brought him back.
Yeah. You were a sympathizer. You were a
I
sympathizer.
don't know what I was thinking about. I should have said, Tom, let's go to Safeway. Tom was out of control, man. He was a good time.
he a runner?
I graduated with Tom.
Wait, Tom's a runner?
He's a dancer. He'd do a jig and go. There was a bunch of them.
How does Tom figure into this?
I love Tom.
Tom was a runner, Shaylee. I think you're.
Tom was one of the runners. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom was one of the runners, and then sometimes Sam Stidham, and he had an attitude about it. So we didn't get him back. Hey, I don't care about blue lives, but sometimes they do have to rough up somebody. Anyway, I don't want to sound too political here. Yeah, but I had a lot, so I rounded them up. So originally I was in grade school I was rounding them up. So not every day, but sometimes it was like 6 blocks away, and I had to talk them into going back.
To chase a kid 6 blocks.
Fuck yeah!
The adult teachers just were like, Andy's in charge.
Andy,
of,
go get him.
Retard.
Mrs. Call. We got him. She also, her other catchphrase was, Andy, get your nose against the wall.
A catchphrase doesn't start with your name.
You're running runners.
It does if she says it enough.
I did a lot of that. I was a spirited kid. Sometimes,
Catchphrase does not start with your name.
sometimes my play we did so it was asphalt, and they had a game. I think we got staggered out there or whatever. But there would be a game of kickball going. And I don't know what age. It didn't matter. I wasn't picking on kids.
School, though.
But when I hit the playground, I fucking was ready to go, man. And I would fucking. I was a little hyper, and I did it like sugar inattentive. Yeah, a little bit. What were we talking about? And I would run out there.
These horse collar tackling retarded kids.
And I'll tell you what, Mrs. Call, it was a fucking playground of rats, because people would rat on me, but I would run out there, and I was so excited to be at playground every day, hit the ground running.
Andy, you were a screw. You were like the.
Well, I wore both hats, but I was only. It's like
He was a proud boy.
He was a boogaloo. He was a boogaloo.
You know,
I get a mix.
I mean, if I was proud about that gig, we would have heard about it one of the other podcasts by now.
But you're intermixing, but you were also the guy that
Tom, Sam, Bill weren't no runner. Bill, he's a talk. He watch that. He was basically like a Southern guy. He was like if you just knew him and you didn't know he was in them classes, you'd think he was just,
This is almost a one-man.
Southern and retarded are not the same thing, but they're cousins.
Well, I mean, my first time down south, I felt like, when I rounded up retarded people.
Bill may or may not have been retarded. He might have just had an accent.
Bill was retarded, and then so I mean, I've connected with these guys throughout my life. Like, so when we got to middle school, they had a class. There were classes where I got kicked out of a lot of electives. Bounced around them, and I didn't really make choices based on a lot of choices. And I quit some, but eventually I was in VOAG, which was FFA. Some of the kids called them future faggots back then, and that was a
future farmers
fun term. But they all had their gang jacket. They wore them every day, their faggot jackets and FFA. And I wasn't one of them kids, but
you were in the class?
I didn't have any other electives that would take me at some point.
Wait, don't you have to raise an animal for that?
No, but anyway, our teacher,
somebody in the class raised Andy.
Yeah, and I know.
Like everybody I knew that was in FFA, raised a sheep and shit. What happened to you?
Andy thought he was in the class.
Yeah.
You can go into the army, or you have to be an animal in FFA.
Yeah, Andy thought he was in the class, but he was really livestock for the other students.
I can only tell you about
auctioning me off at the fair.
I can't get this collar off.
What I learned in FFA was what Vietnam flashbacks are, because our teacher, so he was there for the same reason I was. He had way better classes he taught back in the day, but things got him down some and triggered him and shit. And basically, he cried a lot in that.
What was his name?
Mr. Britton.
That's it.
Yeah, Mr. Britton. I think my dad referred to him as Cotton Britton, and I'm not sure why. My dad was a teacher before he gave up, and then he did a little stint in the mill before God chose to take his legs or whatever. But Mr.
What
Britton.
branch of the military was your dad in?
The mill.
One that didn't do. I don't. He killed rats in the Marshall Islands. Not Japanese. No, he was in a uniform when he killed rats, but he never. He had a.
Oh, the lumber mill.
As a kid, well, my dad was. Technically, he never talked about anything except like playing pranks on people and shit. But he had a sniper rifle that we had, and I guess Jeff took it. I used to point it at the mill. And people, a lot. I had it had a cool rifle sight, and I'd lang it off and shit. I didn't have bullets, though. That was the problem. It wasn't a problem.
The mailman doesn't know that.
He was worried about Bob. He was worried about my old Bob anyway. But Mr. Britton had what you call Vietnam flashbacks, and he didn't teach nothing. I don't remember there being a thing, except for when there was an FFA event. Mr. Britton kind of rallied and organized them, because he was also, by lack of anything else, their coach. Maybe a couple $100 extra bucks. The only day I really remember anything other than him crying in the dark. We had to leave the high school and go into a metal building that was separate. That was like a ramshackle, That's what. And it was the retarded class was next to us. So you heard a lot. That's basically, I just sit over there and look at magazines and listen to the playful chatter next door. And then one day there's a farmer who brought a bunch of piglets.
Uh-oh.
And I volunteered, and sometimes it gets you out of things. You're like, yeah, I'll do it. And that's another experience I had, is I put my hand up and got to hug retarded kids at the Special Olympics. And like, what am I doing? And anyway,
that was years later.
Yeah, no, we're in the same time frame, but no, this actually Britain was in this.
Pigs.
Yeah, this Britain was in high school, so I was like a freshman, sophomore. It was a sophomore year. That's when, I was a spirited kid still. And so this farmer brought pigs, and we didn't learn nothing about nothing, It's just one day there was piglets there, and the thing was we were going to castrate them.
How many piglets?
Oh, shit.
There were about 12, I think. It was a lot of. I just remember sitting over there listening to the playful squeals next door, and not a cool farmer neither. Like, oh, no, you don't go up there. And he brought piglets, and then he did a real matter-of-factly display of how you cut it. And I do remember, I was right up. I was intrigued when the pigs come in, and I was like, what's going on here, man? And I don't.
They're weeks old.
They're babies.
This is like a Clarice Starling Silence of the Lambs story.
I had to do this with my goat, and I know I said pigs are like goat, like they have giant nuts already, even as babies. Mm-hmm. So whenever castrating them is a traumatic fucking thing. I was surprised when I watched him do it to my goat as a fucking 30-year-old.
So it turns out it hurts if your balls.
Well, he did it in. I left when they did that.
Asked the farmer.
I don't know if I was squeamish, but they said it when they showed that Faces of Death thing in another class. They go, if you have a problem with this, you can leave. And I watched.
In school?
You're a cop.
Wait, which one of you didn't watch Faces of Death in junior high?
Yeah, this was a different class.
Oh, no, not at school.
Yeah, one day in health class, Mr. Phillips said, okay, and here's the deal, and there's a cop there, and he shows us basically this.
There's a monkey at a table. We're gonna hit it on the head, need its brains.
The one I left on, and I don't know if it really bothered me so much as I also had been told I could leave, and I like fucking driving around and shit. This was that year, senior year. There's a guy who leaned into a shotgun on a logging road and blew his head off, and I was like, oh, so that's how I should do it. I got enough ideas to work with. I'm gone. But Mr. Britton was fucking not having a good day, and this farmer, I guess he knew the farmer was coming in or whatever, but Mr. Britton was upset, and this farmer was taking the lead, and I guess he, it's like, hey man, I need these pigs neutered. I'm going to bring them to school. A school. Yeah, it's like
Let the kids do it.
The teacher wasn't taking lead at all, and it's like he sort of was, but he's like, and the farmer cut a ball, put the rubber band around, wrapped him, cut one. Do you cut two? I don't know. I think you cut two.
One cut. I've seen
yeah. Pull it down, cut that off.
One cut. Reach in,
bottom of the sack, pull them out,
and then throw them to the dog.
Yep. And then you spray some sort of fucking spray paint adhesive over the fucking.
We would have needed to go back into the shop.
And then you say, "Hush, puppies."
We would have needed to go. So,
brutal.
So I was like, and it was again one of those things. It was like a farm. Mr. Britton was like, we're all gonna do this kind of thing from the back. We kept the lights low. He liked the lights low. Probably Vietnam. Did they keep the lights low in Vietnam? But he liked the lights low in that dark room.
They keep the lights
This
low
and Mr. Britton, I don't think he. Honestly, I would have given him low marks if there were comment cards. But he didn't. He'd get violent, but he'd get violent with walls and throw things, and then he was gone. And then eventually, I was like, all right, let's just go. I didn't tell them, I just go. But this day, I said I'll do it, and I went up, and then for some reason, I guess the retarded class, that door opened. It never opened. It's like an adjoining room to the fun house, It was like
the one day the door opened is when you were
it's like the whole. So they come in, and there was a row of chairs.
They probably thought they were next.
Yeah.
Tom, there's Bill, there's Tom. I wish I could have one. A Tom. Fuck yeah. And he wasn't being ironic, or he just got it. And they were so the whole group, there's like 6 or 7 of them all sitting there, and then that's when the farmer did the thing, and the pig squealed, and they were fucking screaming. Mr. Britton was losing his shit, and I fucking tried to give it a go. When I got it,
they handed you the knife.
I had a razor blade. We do it with a razor. Well, we did.
God.
So,
what is wrong with this country?
Come on, farmers. We can
do better. Making
you get Mexicans. You get Mexicans to do this, not sophomores.
I don't think Erickson was saying pass it on to somebody else.
That's not.
Well, you want somebody to neuter something that's done. When I get a needle in by somebody, I go, "Who's the bleeder around here? Who's the veiny?" Because some of them are newbies and they won't fucking tell you.
What?
I don't want to get poked by somebody who's not good at it.
I think he's talking about giving blood.
I'm talking about Tiger Woods and his wife, and that situation.
I don't think we're in high school anymore.
Yeah, I think we've transferred.
It was a fucking nightmare. I made one slice on the pig's testicle, and then I
just imagine that pig going, "Come on!"
I
it all the way.
I let go of it.
That's worse.
I don't
be free, like free will.
It kind of like it's like there's so much going on here, and this ain't my war. I don't have a dog in the fight.
I don't have a pig in this fight.
But it seems like my elective class in high school was shop.
Yeah.
Like sometimes like the shop teacher would have his buddy whose car broke down and he'd bring it in, and then that was what we did. Yeah. It seems like the same thing. Like this guy just needed free labor to castrate his pigs. But what a horrible fucking
I would have asked Mr. Schinzer. Mr. Schinzer, come on. He's the wood shop guy. Yeah, I like what I did in wood shop. I was hide behind boards.
You built a fort to hide behind?
What is that?
He built a fake wall for the shop that he stood behind and smoked cigarettes.
And he built a napping area.
Like George Costanza napping in his desk.
Like that. I hid behind pine in a wood shop for half hours. I didn't make a lot of projects, but I would go. So you go look for your wood to select a project. project. And I was like, I can just loiter back here. Mr. Schinzer had to be alert because people were running machines and shit. So he never really
for sleepers.
Yeah, he didn't kick me out. He just goes, there's nothing I can grade here.
That's been up all semester.
He gave me a
mercy. You gotta admire my creativity, sir. You didn't find my fort at all.
One nail in that.
I consider this an A. I got 10 fingers, man. So I hid behind stacks of pine most of your class. Good thing I wasn't.
I'm sure when he went to grade you, he was like, Andy Andrews, who is that? I've never even seen an Andy.
No, they all, you don't know. You think, I didn't think my football coach really knew me. Oh, I know. He benched me and I called him a fucking cunt. And fuck you. I threw my gear at him only because he was at that comedy show behind a wire, and I took in preparation. Some people say, the best part of football is preparing yourself. And I did. I put my helmet in the shoulder pads and got it all cinched up and everything. And then I go, I'm not on the travel team. Fuck you, coach. Because he was back there where he could not get to me without scrambling. And I threw my gear at him. And then I ran. Who is
that guy?
I ran a wind sprint. No,
what's our team going to do without whoever that was?
Yeah. But right. Well, my listed weight was 155. There were a lot of 155ers on that roster, and
You think he was confused by your stature and how much weight?
Here's the thing: you can't measure. I wasn't a team player ever. I liked playing the game, but only for me. I didn't care about winning. I only liked it when I started. I didn't support anybody else. I just did the work, so I'd get on the field and hit somebody, and not even necessarily having to do with where the ball is. That's what I did on defense. I was a defensive back, but also I didn't hit a lot of people, but
that's called a wild card.
Yeah, I was a real wild card. I thought I was like Kenny Easley, but he hit people with the ball. I was a headhunter, and I hit guys. My specialty was special teams, because there's a lot of people who are
special needs.
Yeah, well, a lot of people running around looking at something else, and then you find somebody who's that guy who's like, I planted him. I planted him, and then we would look at old school real films, and the coach goes, "God damn it, that's a hit." They measured football.
The snack bar.
Yeah. You got
to keep your head on a swivel in this game, kids.
Yeah.
And that's why.
I'll tell you what, if football was played out of bounds, I would have been a starter and I would have held that position. I got a penalty out of bounds. I slid on top of a guy out of bounds, and I had I tackled him. He had the ball, and I roughed him up. Hit him. Yeah, and he slid in the mud out of field, and the ball fumbled out of bounds, or not fumbled, it was out of bounds. And then I got up, stood. I didn't do it. I just had a handful of mud, and I threw it in his face mask. I guess I didn't argue it. He threw a flag and I got yelled at.
All over your hand.
God damn it! It was right in front of our bench too. I didn't do it because I hated the kid or anything. I just saw him vulnerable down there, and I had a handful of mud. I doused him. My old man taught me to play that way.
You puddled him.
Yeah, and I acted sometimes like if I wanted to get in.
I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from watching you.
Yeah. When you went into a game, you go behind the coach in a football game and go, "Come on, man, these guys aren't making the plays out there," or whatever. And he's looking.
You think the coach is hearing you behind him going, I think this guy's got some good ideas. Get in there.
He waddles over there with his grass-stained practice uniform.
Yeah. He,
mud all over his hands.
Andy should not have been playing football. Andy should have been at fucking parties in the woods, fist fighting other fucking violent people like I did.
Yeah. Here's a couple things about Mr. Coach Clem. He's the guy with the big horse-sized dick that shower at the team sometime to
anything.
It wasn't a motivator, It wasn't a motivator. And also when I was a kid, and I don't know, Dave acted on it or whatever, but he had a Playgirl magazine, and that's the first time I saw a cock was Jim Brown of the Cleveland Browns big cock, and I always thought, man, that's what they look like. And then I was like, it'll get there.
We're all still waiting, man.
Come on, little dude.
It's all right.
Come on, little dude.
Hope is always
Why
But-
would you ever know what magazines your coach has?
No, this is my brother Dave, but he had, but but then I saw Coach Clem and he had a Jim Brown-esque dick, so it's a football thing, I guess.
Wait a minute. That's a better question.
But he
Jim
also
Brown
ass dick.
He
it
also
was a white version.
He also had a curly Q mustache, and we'd run out on the field through the flame, and he's so fucking hot. He thought it was great or whatever, and we'd run. But he was also a drunk driver. I knew the kid who was our quarterback. He sucked, and he lived next to the coach, and the coach would show up and hit trash cans and shit. He said, he knew how to have a good time, but he didn't particularly see me as a worker bee to the team effort, and I get it. And so years later, he was at a class reunion. I forget which one it was, and there was a slideshow, but I was way more popular than I remembered. Everybody was like, "Oh shit," I was like, "I don't like myself. Why did you? What's your problem?"
An odd memory to have looking back on high school for sure.
Yeah, the only person I ever loved died, so fuck off. But I was, and they liked me, and it felt, too late, man. Way too late. I only come to this thing to mock you fucks. And Coach Clem was there, and they played a video, and they wanted me to get up and do a skit for him. Like, fuck you, man. I was on free lunch tickets, and a lot of you had a chuckle about it. I'm not going to try to turn that smile upside down now. Fuck off.
Should have been the bit you did.
Yeah, I didn't. But when they did the slideshow, I was cracking from the back like I did with that group. And then they showed a picture of me, and I was like fucking Mishka shirtless, but I was gorgeous. I don't blame the pedophile from that standpoint. I was a cutie pie, and I kept it going through high school, even though the pills I think helped. But
listen,
anyway,
we can just keep going forever.
let's cut it off.
The bugs are starting to attack our light, and
there's no point to this.
This is Andy. You're like fucking comedy jazz.
Don't put coke in good heads or bad. Anyway,
yeah. Don't put good drugs in bad heads.
Don't put specials on television unless they pay you.
We're gonna do this a couple more times out here. So thanks for being out there. And
there's nobody there. You just said that over here.
You can't see.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. I got it handled. Thanks for being out there. And we love you guys. This will be on the Patreon, so I want you Patreon people to know that the money that you give us on Patreon has funded this drug-fueled bacchanal.
Bacchanal.
And we are grateful.
Is that the word?
Yeah.
And we're grateful.
Thank you.
So otherwise, we'd have to pay for our own drugs, and that's gay.
Yeah.
So thanks, guys.
Big closer.